For some, the nightmare is over. They are the victims of satanic crime. Overcoming this evil begins with every family. Parents must provide attention and love, protecting their children from corrupt influences, keeping the lines of communication open, and insisting on proper education. When this is accomplished, you can be confident that children will grow into happy, well-adjusted, and productive citizens, free from satanic and occultic influences.
Social distancing variety hour.
Join cults, kids.
Yeah, join lots of cults, satanic cults.
Yeah.
I'm Michael from the Cult of Michael.
I'm Adam from the Cult of Michael.
Oh, spreading already. Get yourselves together.
Yeah. We got songs, we got
hello,
t-shirts,
my friend. How
we got
are
everything. You? I'm doing pretty okay. How are you doing?
Nah. I'm here. That's job one.
Yes, job one, show up for the show.
Show up for 2 hours a week for the one thing that I give a shit about anymore.
Aw, thanks.
Yeah, hey, absolutely, man. If it wasn't for you, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm glad we've got this too.
Yeah, it's something, you know. So God knows I can't have a girlfriend, so you're it.
Yeah, I'll breathe on you, baby.
Crumble and shake. Now my panties are wet for the rest of the show.
Oh, get a lot of that.
As the world turns, man, this week has been the continued frustration, yet that my heart is filled with hope for the first time in a long time. If you know me, you know that's true. There's great change happening. And it's because people are in the streets, and it's because people are making a concerted effort to fight the power, basically.
Yeah.
Like Minneapolis today gave a veto-proof majority to disband their police department.
No shit.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's what peaceful protesting does on top of things. And from everything that I've seen and read, and trust me, I've seen and read a lot this week, it's working. And the protests only turn violent when the cops show up. And that seems unsuspicious to me, because that's been the whole basis. Because if you trace the history of police, it really just goes back to, gangs of people finding runaway slaves.
Yeah.
But it's also been just astronomical, the amount of violence and the changing of stories and the manipulation of the media to show how cruel and inhumane people can be, and just disregard humanity in order to maintain some kind of status quo that does not work for everyone. And it's troubling. It's also inspiring that people are starting to wake up. And I hope more people kind of see what's going on and get a sense of where they belong, and that everything that they thought has been good and fine and doing just dandy for them is not.
Yeah.
And if they continue to think that way, that they're part of the problem.
Well, and it seems like there's some sort of momentum to it this time around, because God knows we've been down this road before. Unfortunately, and I'm not sure whether I'm being naive to think that, but it does feel like there's some sort of momentum to it this time around that there has not been in times past, when we've, as a nation and as a world, gotten angry about black people being killed by the police.
Yeah, and I think just with everything, and not at all to disregard the killing of black people as a movement, because that is a necessity at this point. but even things like Occupy,
Yeah.
where the narrative can switch so quickly, and then we can watch it just disappear and be brushed off as some radical white teens or some bullshit like that, just anarchists angry in the streets, when all of those things have helped to maintain the institutions that are providing this cover now for everything that's going on.
Well, and I've been thinking about Occupy a lot in the last couple of weeks, because like that was around the time I met you, was when Occupy was going on. And I mean, not to blow your cover, but you were, you know, somewhat involved in Occupy Erie to the extent that that was a thing. And that, like, literally that was the last time that it felt like, okay, this is, you know, some sort of seed of something that feels like it's going to be some actual change. And that's been literally, what, 8-9 years ago now?
Yep. 8, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And you know what to say actually came out of that, I'm not sure, but you know, it's, you know, there's certainly been enough stuff in the interim that has been worth protesting about and worth, you know, pushing for change about. But that's the last, I mean, for me, that's the last time that anything felt like it had this sort of critical mass that it's like, no, something needs to actually happen as a result of this stuff that's happening around the country and around the world.
And like I said, this institutional control, to kind of bring it into the wider perspective and then localize it, like, coronavirus is still a thing, man.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if any of you have been keeping up on this, but that's still a thing. And the way that you can change the narrative on it so quickly, you know, the people that don't wear masks and say, oh, this is still a thing, is troubling in itself. But the people that are like, we don't need to wear masks anymore.
Right.
And it's like, I work with someone who just recently came back to work because they're immunocompromised. And I feel like how selfish, you know, to claim constitutional rights.
Yeah.
Or as some stupid hick told me, you shouldn't be wearing that mask. You should read the Declaration of Independence. And, you know, and I was like,
I can read just fine with a mask on.
Yeah. And I'm not quartering British troops, so I'm all right there, brother. But thanks. But that, you know, that we immediately shift back to this, like Erie not going green. Since we've gone yellow, there's been almost 300 new cases, not to mention all of the pneumonia deaths that are going on, so that we could reach that level. But to have Kathy Dahlkemper and Mirsky and all these fucking people come out and be like, it's a goddamn shame, and their Harrisburg is treating us poorly. No, you fucked up. You didn't lead. You didn't make it serious enough. You didn't take this the right way, and now you're just trying to go back into, well, the money needs to flow.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I don't know whether you saw the change of tune that Mirsky had this week. It was something I wanted to bring up on the show. You know, last week we had this conversation that, you know, the narrative coming out of Mirsky's office was, you know, how dare the governor's office keep us yellow? We deserve to be going green. And then 2 days ago, it basically flipped to, holy shit, we had 31 new cases in the last day.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, like, Erie, I'm trying to help you guys, but y'all are fucking up. Get your shit together. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to go green. And it's like, well, this is like, is it so inconceivable that a week ago, when you were all pissed off about it, that they actually knew what they were talking about, and there was a reason we were not being allowed to go green?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I don't need to sit outdoors in a parking lot to eat my riblets at Applebee's to be happy.
Right.
You know, I want a fucking haircut too, but I'm not driving to some green county so that I can say, hey, I'm here to infect you, you know,
with
like,
my filthy city ways.
Yeah, coming up from the big city to, you know, reinforce your tune. I just, you know, but the one thing that really pissed me off is the revelation, or the release of pneumonia deaths. and not just in Pennsylvania, but also like New Jersey and Florida and Georgia.
Yeah.
And 10,000-fold plus increases over a 5-year span that they looked at.
Wow.
For pneumonia deaths that they've been hiding just so that they can go green, just so that they can get the economy back. And that in itself is the problem of the greater problem, in that in maintaining this status quo idea, like, you didn't have to give 7 fucking Walmarts in a 20-minute radius of Erie tax breaks in order to make an economy work here. You didn't have to give tax breaks to UPMC and Erie Insurance and all these other fucking places that do not and will not contribute to the greater good, regardless of all the, the PR stunts and bullshit that they'll pull. Like, you could have given it to everybody, up on the Federal Hill.
Yeah.
You could have given it to all the local restaurants and bars that keep dropping out and failing on State Street because there's nothing there. You could have done so many things sooner. You could have invested in minority-owned businesses before the EDDC came in and tried to ply everybody with their curling courts and their, look at how pretty this will be. You could have done all this shit before because you knew it was the problem and you didn't. And now, when we're faced with this clusterfuck of a situation, there is no answer other than, the machine
let's do the stuff that we should have done 10, 15, 20, 40, 60 years ago.
And it's not going to happen.
No.
And no one cares. There's no adults in the room. And so I'm glad. And I hope people continue to go out on the street. I hope people continue to listen and open their ears. I feel like I've been told I'm smart, and we know you're smart.
Well,
so
I know random shit anyway, which is
right.
a good substitute for being smart. Is
sure, yeah, it's it's the aesthetic of smartness,
right?
That we have.
Exactly.
but I feel I have become more educated. Just like like reading To Kill a Mockingbird and Grapes of Wrath isn't enough in high school to get you somewhere. And I've done a lot of thinking about this myself, and not just because of now, but because of the last few years, and just getting older has made me kind of rethink my life, but how ignorant I am when it comes to things, and how it wasn't until high school that there were more than 2 or 3 people of color in my class.
Sure.
And then even then I was just filled with the institutional racism of the culture, not myself being that way.
Right.
My maternal grandparents were in, of their time.
Sure.
And so there was no hate coming from me, but the ignorance of it is despicable at that point. And then moving to Los Angeles right out of high school was just like, if you could have slapped a naivete sticker across my face, it probably would still be being washed off, because it was
I always kind of
incredible.
forget that that's a thing that you did.
Yeah. I've been places and done things, but so I think about that in context of my own life, and I'm lucky because I did get to travel, and I did get to meet people, and I did get to see things that, and exposure to things that other people haven't seen and haven't done. And but even up until modern times, like our friends Big Wash and C. Williams,
sure,
those two even helped me more, where they knew that I'm not of this hate, but they also saw things inside that I was still doing because of the conditioning that I was in.
Right.
And so I've been looking a lot at responses to things that people say and do, especially in response to like looting and rioting, which was such a flashbang thing because of anger and hate. And now you look at the video from like Philadelphia, which I encourage you to do, and just the massive humanity marching. And for fuck's sake, Willard Mitt Romney was marching today, and said himself, I am in support of the Black Lives Matter cause, and was singing This Little Light of Mine with a bunch of other evangelicals that are probably going to be denounced by their own churches. But these things are little markers to watch for.
Yeah.
Now, I also don't agree with watching cops do the Macarena or kneel with you or anything, because that's fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
So don't fall for that, because they'll kick you in the chest and throw a flashbang in your face just as quick. But I think this is one of those moments where if we can continue all to grow and learn and listen, then we'll all be better off for it. I'm just sitting on my soapbox tonight. What are you drinking?
I'm drinking whiskey tonight because I just woke up, and that seems well. I'm from a nap. I had a
right. Yeah. No, I know, but you can tell by your hair.
Day drinking support local everything adventure this afternoon, and came back and I'm like, I got 90 minutes before the show starts. Beep.
What kind of whiskey are you drinking?
I'm drinking Bird Dog bourbon from my local liquor vending establishment.
That's a closeout item. You're not going to see that anymore. So enjoy that one.
That's why I bought a whole bunch of it. I bought like $17. I'm going to buy 2 of those, and then I'm going to come back and see if there's any more left.
I got myself a nice California rare black blend this week.
Nice.
I feel like I haven't run the course on Spanish Reds, but I'm tired of the same, where I'm at. There's this a limited selection, and
you don't want to go to the well too often on Spanish Red.
Plus $7.99 for blends. I'll do it. Not an advertisement or an endorsement. Just saying. We've got a phenomenal show tonight. In keeping with us trying to shed our middle class naivete whiteness and become a better person and people in and of ourselves, and to grow the cult of Michael. But we've got fantastic guests, and all credit to Adam for making that happen.
Oh,
so
I tried.
Who are we having tonight?
We got Tyler Titus on the show tonight. Tyler Titus of Erie School Board, and until recently of the mayor's LGBTQ advisory council, which is a situation that I'm sure we'll talk about, because that's that's some good tea going on.
We still have a mayor? Anyway.
And our friend Monica Igras is coming back. We had her for a quick minute in the corner of the screen last week talking about, what she's been seeing out on the streets. And we were like, you were fantastic. Let's have you back, but for real, and we'll talk about some more stuff. So Monica Igras will be joining us in the second hour of the show.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. We used to, Michael and I would make up words and music, and we'd show lots of silly videos with people dancing, and we still do that once in a while too. But it's a different world, it's a different show. There's shit going on out there. Let's talk about it.
I was just trying to think of a bunch of characters from a different world that I could reference, and I thought of none. And I was just
I don't know any characters from a different world either.
And I was like, wait, Lisa Bonet, but first I was like Soleil Moon Frye, and I was like, no, that's Punky Brewster.
That's Punky Brewster.
Yeah, but now breast reduction surgery. Watch me go off on my '80s knowledge, because that's how
Because you grew up the same time I did. Let's get into some music and see if we can get Mr. Titus on the show. This is friends of the show, March on Comrade. This is a new one called Subsist. Social distancing variety hour. That was
Let's
March
bring
on
in our
Comrade.
guest.
Hi, Tyler
yeah,
Titus.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us.
Name, rank, and serial number.
These days, I don't even know anymore. I really don't.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us. It's absolutely fantastic to have you with us. Give the good people just a little bit of background about you, because you're making news, but we want to know but we want to know the person, and I don't want you to be one of those flash in the pan, like, this guy's got something to say this week, but you're, like, this isn't, it's just now that people are recognizing rather than understanding that you came from somewhere.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tyler Titus from Titusville, which,
that's fun.
It is.
I was born in Titusville too.
So yeah, so it's T Vegas, the good stuff there. I'm the oldest of, I believe that there's 12 of us. My mom and dad, when I was 16, Yeah, my mom and dad became foster parents when I was 16, and so there's a lot of us. There's a lot of us running around. But when they became foster parents, that's really what sparked my interest in the social justice, just getting involved, seeing how my siblings were falling through the cracks, especially my siblings who were biracial. The schools forgot about them. Once they were in the system, and they got gobbled up. So watching what my family went through is really what kind of paved out my trajectory of what I wanted to do when I grew up. And that's just the passion that I have followed. In 2017, I ran for the Erie City School Board because I said my passion is working with kids and making sure that their voices are heard and that they get the best chance to be the best selves. And in a holy shit moment, I won. I knew, I believed in it. I believed in what I stood for. I believed in my passion. But when I ran, I actually didn't know that if I won, I was going to be the first transgender person in the state of Pennsylvania to be elected. Yeah. So it wasn't until someone's like, hey, Tyler, I actually think this is a historic run. I was like, no shit. And it was like a month out from the general election that we kind of pieced it all together. And because it was never about me being trans. Like that gives me a lot of, just like a unique perspective in my own lived experience, but that's not why I ran. I didn't run because I'm Tyler the trans guy. I ran because I'm Tyler and I believe in equity and I believe in justice, and I just so happen to be trans. And so I never wanted to get pigeonholed into there, but I have. And so now I guess I'll use it and I'll run with it too.
Yeah.
Does that, because that happens everywhere, the black candidate, Hispanic candidate, the first. And does it sort of, do you have to try harder? Do you have to show more that you're on a level that you're doing this for the right reasons rather than trying to be not just a trailblazer, but that this is some kind of, like, I posted this sign and now this is just me?
So yeah, I think that it really depends on the context and what conversation I'm in. There are definitely rooms that I have to work harder at, but there are also rooms that I just walk in and I'm perceived as a white male, and so quite frankly, I don't have to do a whole lot of work. I just have a spot at the table, and there I am.
Look at us!
And that's just kind of where I am. But I guess at first, I think everyone just assumed that I was just going to talk about queer rights, and they didn't acknowledge that maybe this guy knows something about other things. And so I've used my platform, absolutely, and I will always use my platform to work for those who have been marginalized and oppressed, and that is a big part of the queer community. But there's intersectionality within the queer community, right? So it's not just white gay people that I'm talking about, or white queer people. I'm talking about all queer people. And so it's been niching myself out in that way too. But my lived experience as a gender expansive person has definitely brought a lot to the table, and given me a platform, and honestly made me a little bit more like, I don't really give a shit what you think, because you're not the first person that told me I was wrong. So I think I'm a little bit more emboldened to feel like your opinion of me actually doesn't hurt my feelings. I'm pretty solid in that range. So I do think I've been able to carve out myself that way a little bit more.
And that's the kind of people that we like to have on the show. The people with people with no fucks left to give.
Yeah, I'm not real subtle. I don't know if you guys have.
Yeah.
So what's new with you this week?
Yeah.
What's new this week? So it turns out I pissed a few people off, but no, it's okay. Because that's also something I'm really good at doing. Honestly, this week is what I wanted to show people is what you do with allyship. Like, this is what allyship and this is what privilege looks like, and this is how you use it to make a statement and break down doors and call attention to things that need to be in the limelight. So I'm very privileged, and I needed to use that in a way that said, I'm not going to align myself. I'm not going to align myself with people who are going to be okay with other people being brutalized and harmed.
Yeah.
And I tried to use my voice in ways that clearly wasn't getting through. And I know I have a platform, and I knew that there was a way I could use my platform to get attention, and it got attention. It got some attention.
Does it feel frustrating to know that there is a Democratic administration that still doesn't give a fuck? It's just like, this could be anything. Like, aren't you supposed to be big tent? Aren't they supposed to be more open to these things? And then they don't even listen.
I think it was really sad for me. I don't know how else, that was like the best word I can probably get to encapsulate it. Like, I'm sad. Like, I'm sad because, I hear a lot of Mayor Schember is a good guy. Yeah, he is a good guy. And good guys can still do not great things. Good guys can still not advocate in the right ways, and good guys can still not listen. And I don't want to hear somebody, and I'm feeling this line. This line was given to me by somebody who serves with me across the state, and they said, we're really tired of the Miss America speeches. We know everybody wants to end world hunger. We know everybody wants to end racism. What are you going to do about it? And that's what we need. We need policy. We need change. We need somebody who's going to stand up and say, I'm going to burn down some bridges because I have to do that in order to build new ones that everyone can walk across. And I think that's what I really saw this week, is there are some alliances that people just aren't willing to risk because they're afraid of how the community is going to receive them or what's the backlash that they're going to get. And quite frankly, people are dying. We don't have time to worry about whose feelings are going to get hurt. Our community members are literally dying, and we're just watching.
Yeah, it's something to be said for our whole society, where it's like, I'd like to have a beer with that guy, so he looks all right, but I'd rather have an asshole that leads and finds what's right and does those things than to have this milquetoast bullshit over and over again that just gives those Miss America speeches. So what do you do now?
And like Joe Schember, like, he genuinely seems to be a nice guy. But like, my dad's a nice guy, and like, I wouldn't want my dad to be mayor either. And Joe Schember is essentially having my dad as mayor. And I mean, literally, like, they're both old white banker dudes who used to work together in the 90s. And like, when you need somebody to,
cut your chicken, yeah, thanks, guy, but
when you need somebody to show up and pretend to be Santa Claus for a bunch of kids, Joe Schember's great. And like, literally, Joe Schember was Oscar's first Santa Claus at Frontier Park a couple of years ago. It's like, oh, that's really sweet. Joe Schember came out to be Santa for all these kids, but like, he is not cut out for this shit. Like, he's not a wartime mayor. He's not like ready for,
Yeah,
people fighting in the streets is not.
I do.
Yeah.
And I do think he's a great guy, and I do think he has some great ideas. But where he really is lacking is he's lacking in lifting up the voices that need to be heard right now, and not just like kneeling in front of them for a beautiful photo. That was a very powerful photo. He needs to have them. He needs to not have them at his table. He needs to go to their table and say, show me what needs to be different, because Black and brown people have the solutions, and they have written novel after novel, and they have given us blood, sweat, and tears and their bodies. They've given us their bodies to show what needs to be done, and we're not listening.
Right.
And I think that's part of the problem. And it's what I see coming from this administration is we can't white our way out of this. Racism is a white problem, but it's not the white people who have all the answers. And that's where I get so angry is we go in and we're like, well, if they would just do this,
Yeah.
And I'm like, if you start a sentence like that, you've already missed. You've come into this completely wrong. This racism is a white person problem. So if we're gonna fix it, we fix it with what we're doing. But we can't keep demanding that Black people and brown people and Latino people come to our tables so that we fill our diversity quota. We need to start going and earning spots at their tables. We really do.
Yeah, good luck in this fucking town finding somebody that can run for politics and do that. And, you know, I mean, aside, but very few. And there's so, and I mean, I feel like this town is, you know, anytime they want to do test products, Erie comes up on the map. You know, that's why you always see so many reporters going through all the news channels and everything, is because it's a nice middle market where there's a nice middle class and there's a nice easy way and everything can just go through, and there's just enough city, but it's just like, country enough that you can do it.
Will it play in Peoria?
Exactly. And so, and I really don't think that's happening. And aside from my overall feel about, you know, until the great boomer die off, it's all going to be the same. I really I think that we're just stuck here. So, you know, aside from getting invited to tables and really opening our eyes and our ears to listen, you know, aside from burning shit down, which isn't going to happen here, like what do we do?
Well,
that's a great question. What were you gonna say, Adam? Go.
No,
you're the host. You go.
Yeah, you go. What do middle-aged white guys think about this?
Well, I was just gonna say, and we've shown we're not very good at that so far yet either.
Yeah.
And so but I think that these are all great points that you guys are making. Sorry, I had my window crack and a huge bug just tried to fly in, so I had to like access denied real quick. You know, it's a lot more about policy reform, but it's a systemic thing, and it takes us back to that book of White Fragility, right? So I'm going through it right now, and I'm listening to it again, and these messages are so powerful that when we can, and I think people have a hard time distinguishing this. Not every racist looks like Donald Trump.
Right.
Not every racist speaks like Donald Trump, and that doesn't. And just because you have a Black friend, or you go to Black gatherings, or you donate to the Black Lives Movement, does not mean you're also not benefiting from white supremacy, or that you're not benefiting from these systems that remain in place. And that if these systems come down, that equity is going to somehow take from you.
Right.
And I think that we don't have a full understanding that how we contribute and how we play into it, and that nice people are racist. Like we think that there's this misnomer, especially within our community, that they're like, no, I respect them, I see them, and I'm like, okay, but
well, and there's this idea that equity is somehow some sort of a zero-sum thing, like that other people's gain is gonna be my loss or my people's loss, or you know, whatever I identify as my community is going to take a hit because of somebody else doing better. Like there's only so many beans to go around.
Right. Or that when you say Black Lives Matter, you somehow are saying that other lives don't matter.
Right.
That we're somehow saying blue lives don't matter. And I get.
So, wow.
Yeah. But yeah, my sister's a state trooper. And so, you know, there's been a lot of family controversy going on this week, and that's just like full disclosure. Sorry, it's on live. But, because, you know, my family feels very torn. Like, who do we align? We align with who I'm being seen as the radical liberalist over here, or do we align with the state trooper daughter, right?
Yeah.
And I just don't feel that you don't have to pick a side. And when you elevate, and if you follow that argument all the way through, and you look at Black Lives Matter, right? When you look and you lift at Black lives, when you get down there, you are protecting blue lives. When you send officers into a situation where they escalate it, and they are the one who's carrying out the oppression, they are the deliverer of the oppression and the brutality, you are sending them you're marching them into war. So you cannot tell me that blue lives matter if you are not willing to say Black Lives Matter, because those things go hand in hand.
Right. And
they do. And I am not anti-cop. I'm anti-Black racism. I am anti-system brutality. I am anti the way things are set up right now. I am not anti-cop. We need community policing, but we don't need it this way. This is broken. The system was built on a broken system.
Yeah.
It was built to target Black and brown people.
And to protect this money thing, and which it all comes back to, and I've said it week after week at this point, but when something becomes about money, then it is just about money. It's ruining the sports I love. It's ruining everything that, music, just all the things that all the delusional things that let me escape from my head that I want, just collapse because of it. But, protecting these institutions and these companies that should be taxed, and people that inherited their wealth, people that were born on third base and were just like, hit a triple, what do you want from me? And with just the slightest tax increase on them, and then just an understanding of how spending goes and how spending works. I saw some interesting facts just this week that the New York City police budget is $6 billion. And their public health budget is $1.6 billion. So if you need $6 billion for all of these cops in order to do all of this chaos and kill all of these people, but you're only contributing $1.6 billion to save people, especially, and fuck Cuomo and fuck de Blasio and everyone else that did not take it seriously and caused this mass death in New York City. Personal friends from Brooklyn that spent weeks in quarantine coughing their lungs out and writing sad letters to their parents about dying. That could have all been changed by having an equity in a system and of understanding, rather than protecting this wealth that goes back, ages, but also back to what we were talking about before, Adam, with the Occupy movement and all these different things that we never seem to understand. And I always feel that, to help allay my white guilt, but I always feel that they use racism and all of these other wedge issues to maintain that wealth quotient for people, when it's like, do you know how much more your money would be worth if everyone was safe, if everyone was healthy, if everyone was fed? Like, your money and your life would be so, your house on the cliffs in Fairview would be so much more fulfilling and less scary if you paid more and just gave more and understood more. And that's the thing that really just bothers me all the time about this.
Well, and there's so much money in the world that's just tied up in keeping the wolf from the door. Which, so...
You have to think, like, within a capitalistic, any, like, country that's really been colonized, this is how it's built, right? There's always the haves and the have-nots. Yeah. And if you start to mess with that system, you mess with the very foundation on which colonized countries are built. You mess with this presumption of democracy that they sell us. Democracy is what they sell you, but what we get is something very, very different, right? We get very rigged. We get very set up for someone to always be without, because somebody has to be in this setup. Somebody has to be without so that people can be with. And that is this presumption, and that is how we're trained in school. That is what we're led to believe. That is why our history books are written the way that they are written. Science class is the way science class is. Everything is set up to get us to buy into these social rules and these social norms and this social belief on a fundamentally flawed system that is built on haves and have-nots.
Well, and it's this notion that, like, if there are winners, then somebody's got to be losing.
Right.
Yeah, one of the things I'm a big fan of history, and one of the things that always got me crazy is when there were invaders, especially from Spain and South America, and they came over and looked at the Inca and the Aztecs to destroy them, and there were games that would go on for days because the point of the game was to get to 0-0. Like, it was for both teams to become equal. No matter how many times you scored, the whole point of it was that both teams ended up equal. And they never understood that. Like, all these Spanish conquistadors were just like, but you don't have a winner. And they're like, yes, we showed competition, but yet we both got to the same level, and it worked, and it destroyed their, you know, Catholic minds of gold and conquest. So it never ceases to amaze that we take this as some kind of human condition, that there must be a winner and a loser in all of these things.
Yeah, and we can't just play Unitarian musical chairs where there's enough chairs for everybody.
Tyler, what about, I mean, racism is one thing because it's easy. You know, it's easy to hate someone for a different color, but homophobia and like these all of these issues that come out against LGBTQ plus communities are so much more, I don't know, just it's so much more devious, because there's never a thing. Like, I went to prep because I don't know, stupid reasons, I guess, but I went to prep, and it, as being in an all guys school, and all they would do just, hey, fact, you know, just all this shit that was just like, okay, sure.
Well, you should have heard what we said about you at McDowell.
Yeah, well, bunch of farmers anyway, which never made sense to me either. But but like, it's such from a whole different insidious place, and especially now, because when you do look through history, there's celebration and there's understanding. I was just reading a fascinating article today about Native Americans and how they had two-spirit.
Yeah.
And there would be members of their tribes that were two-spirit, that were male that became female, or female that became male. And they celebrated, and they were great warriors, and they had all of these wonderful things. And so in the experience of that, how is there a teachable thing? Is there a way to kind of understand a sexuality that, or is it just the bothersome part of it? Is it just the ew factor and some random lines out of Leviticus that make everybody crazy?
Oh man, I think that you've tackled a lot of things there. So I guess
yes, unpack everything about homophobia for us, right?
Answer for this.
Answer for all of these things. You know, there is, to say where it was born again. I'm gonna go back to kind of where I said it's from. I think it's from the same roots that racism grew, that homophobia, queerphobia. I'm just gonna lump it in with queerphobia. Really grew. And it was in, again, the black and brown, especially black and brown trans women who moved the queer community forward, and who yet again got left behind. And so that I think people can be like, oh, I see color, so it's easier to point out like this is where racism is and this is where it falls. But I think that I don't know that it's more devious. I guess that I would push back on that. I don't know. I think it's another way of othering people. And another way of saying I'm better than, because when we look to cultures that have been colonized, we also look to Catholicism. Like, that typically is following with it, and this is where a lot of that is bred from. And you know, the fun words that we use within this is not a very nice term, but I'm going to use it anyway. You know, just within the breeder community is that mentality of the Catholicism in those lines that most people don't even quote correctly. Or they forget the rest of the quotes that were around it. You know, like, I'm like, what about the rest of the Bible? You know, like, or like, love thy neighbor, or you know, don't touch a fabric that has more than one material, or like, don't touch pigskin. I'm like, what about those
people
things?
That eat shellfish?
And where I get so frustrated too is in every species there's genetic difference, or we move and we all kind of like filter and float out, and new species come out. So I don't understand why anybody would think that within the human race that there wouldn't be movement away from like this cisgender heteronormative, because it exists in every species. So that always has blown, just scientifically speaking, it blows my mind that people get stuck. Like, let's look over the very basic genetic part. Everything, like, and I'm not calling us mutant, but everything mutates and everything spins off, right? There's so many cells. It just blows my mind. It blows my mind that this is such a complex for people to wrap their brain around, because it's really not. It's really not.
Hey, there's gay penguins at this zoo. Right. Like, everybody check this out. Like,
Right. And I mean, there are breeds of lizards that have completely eliminated the quote unquote male species part of it because they just figured out how to do it without them. So like, I mean, that's what happens. Nature adapts and nature moves and nature evolves and nature is full of wonder and variation. And I don't know why we as humans think that it is supposed to not be true for us.
Because we're special.
We are special.
We're special snowflakes, and what's good enough for nature isn't good enough for us.
But I think that's such a salient point, and I think when you run for socialist mayor, you should do that because I'm trying to, because I can't, but you can. Like that's like we're animals, you know, and I think people lose fact of that, and not in this terrifying like grizzly bear coming out of the woods animals, but we're creatures that are stuck to this, you know, our instincts are these things, and we have base needs and we have base wants, and yet we are diverse as everything.
Lizard brain shit that we're driven by.
Yeah, right. Quit being ruled by your limbic system and your amygdala. Like we've evolved past that. We have a prefrontal cortex. Use it.
I love that you bring up breeders and all of a sudden Ren enters the picture. At least someone here serves a good purpose. Tyler, what do you do now? I mean, well, forget that. The effect of this on you. Does it make you want to fight more? Does it make you want to shut? I mean, how do you sleep at night? You know, not because of what you did, but because of the backlash to it.
So I will tell you, like, this has been an interesting week in the sense of this week wasn't about me, right? This week was never supposed to be about the white guy who walked away from the mayor. This week is supposed to be calling attention to the civil unrest and the injustice of Black racism in America. But this and with that, I've had to deal with a lot of my own white guilt, which is not for any Black or brown person to deal with. And at the same time, wanting to be like, I'm so sorry, and that's not anybody, like that's for me to hold. That's for me to navigate and for me to like kind of carry and figure out like why I have this. I can talk about that with my white friends, but all I can do right now for my Black and brown friends is to say, you know, what do you need? What do you need? Because I cannot fathom what this week has been like for them. I cannot fathom to watch the brutalization and the murders of Black and brown people, especially the Black men that have been played, and Breonna Taylor and the Black trans women. And we're not even talking about that. They haven't even come to the forefront. Yep. But that over and over and over, and the talks that they've had to have with their sons and their daughters about just, you know, if the police stop you, if the police call, or you know, if the police approach you, what do you do? And we as white people, these conversations we don't even think about having, and all this swirling around. So you asked me like how I was feeling this week, barely sleeping, and every night I'm just like, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And I'm eating the words that I'm spewing out as I'm reading, I'm digesting, I'm listening to lived experiences. I'm going to the meetings, I'm joining their tables and say, what efforts are you working on? What can I lift up? What do you need me to fight for? What can I use my privilege because I have a spot at this table and they'll listen to my voice, and doing that. And so that's really what I've been doing this week is finding the partnerships that I can lift up and the work that's being done that I can lift up. And I mean, I was doing that before this week, but this week has really, honestly, it freed up some of my time to do the work that I had set out to do to begin with. Like, I'm not doing meetings about meetings that we had last month to talk about how that meeting went. Like, I want action. I don't want it. We've been doing meetings since this country was founded. Like, stop with the meetings. We have the answers. I don't want a meeting about another meeting and then we'll check in about that last meeting. What the hell are we going to do? What are we going to do?
We should probably form a committee to plan the meeting.
We should probably form a committee to figure out and do another needs assessment to figure out, you know, what do they need and how can we do it better than them, right? That's exactly.
Yeah. It's not in the budget, and it doesn't work for these guys because they've got a bottom line to meet.
I'm getting so sweaty over here. Jeez.
That's what we do. Is make white men sweaty.
Yeah. I wouldn't use that as a tagline. I don't know.
Social distancing variety hour.
I definitely would. I definitely would.
Making white men sweaty since 2020. I'm putting that on the Facebook page as soon as we get done.
Please, yeah. The social distancing variety hour is over. It's just making white men sweaty in 2020. So from this, what do we do now? Like, what do you do now? Do you focus on the schools? Is it getting rid of like, oh, you read To Kill a Mockingbird and Grapes of Wrath, so you understand how racism works and how the common man goes. But because at this point it's so broken. I mean, especially the education system, because it's not just magic bullet, but it is the kind of place where everyone gets that shared experience that they don't get from family, that they can't get from church, that they can't get from these things, where you're exposed to every level of economic strata, where you're exposed to, depending on what county you live in, you're exposed to the races, and you're exposed to the differentiation of everything. Like Billy has 2 mommies. All of these things are through the education system, and teachers are underpaid and they're underfunded and classes are overloaded, and there's so much that at what point can you not just throw up your hands and say, fuck, like I don't know at this point.
I've had that conversation. I've literally had that breakdown, and I was like, I can't fucking do it anymore. I'm gonna go like be a professional fisherman or something. Like I just like I don't want to care anymore. I'm gonna jump in the game. But I mean, it's like a temper tantrum in the moment. Because I look at my kids, I look at the kids that I serve on the school board, and I feel so humbled to be there. And there is this understanding that education is the great equalizer, right? But when the educational system itself is flawed and they're not getting full truths within the education system, we have to look at that, right? So I do see that for me, my best effort and for the knowledge that I possess, it will be served in that capacity, is to focus more on equity within the school district. And I'm grateful that our superintendent gets it. Like he is committed, and he is committed to making Erie school districts a more equitable place, especially lifting up our young black men, like especially, but not just our young black men, but anybody who's been marginalized and pushed aside and pushed down. But he is going right for the community that has been missed the most, and like, what do we need to do? Informing teams, and he did the action plan, and that's where I do want to spend a lot of my time, is in there and helping, but not just there. And then I have to go on and I have to help their families too. Like, yes, it's great to help here, but we've got to like focus on our justice system as well. So it doesn't just stop at the over policing. It goes on to when black men get sentenced, they're sentenced for longer periods of time for like less violent crimes than their white counterparts. And there's nobody sitting in the courtroom to watch or hold those judges accountable. So we've got to start holding the judges accountable. We've got to start holding, the defense team accountable. Like who is defending this man? Who has showed up for him? How do we help him defend himself? And so it's not stopping just there, but they're all linked. And if we can't see that they're all linked and every system feeds into the other system, we're gonna all be in these silos and spinning and all thinking we're coming up with these new great innovative ideas when the other system has been doing it. So It really is connecting and networking and again, going to tables that have already existed and listening to like, what do we need to do better as allies? Like, how does a white ally work here?
Yeah. We'll figure it out. Speaking of which, we'll figure it out. Daddy's itching for a cigarette, and Monica Igras isn't a white guy, so we should all get this conversation going so we can listen and learn. Yes. So hopefully Adam has something that's like 7 minutes long.
Yeah, I got something.
Do you have something? Ren, does Adam have something that's 7 minutes long?
Oh, at least.
Oh, thanks, baby. Yeah, this is something at least 7 minutes long, so Michael can go smoke a cigarette. We're going to take a break. We're going to try and get Monica Igras in here to join us. We'll be back in a few with Social Distancing Variety Hour.
strangers and late night bars. She remembered the day her first son was born. She knew every wrinkle before it was formed. She was the top of the class when she was 16, and the moment seemed endless. Things were easy back then. She knew all the words to her favorite songs. When she was alone, she'd sing along and think about how she ended up here in the blink of an eye. She was swimming upstream and rent was always behind. When she was 32, and the moment seemed endless in a very different way. When you're young and free and you're living in the bright sunlight, your dreams will be a guiding light, your radar against the dark. When you fly so high, it feels like you never come down. There's no one to listen now, so tune on the radio. She thinks about life and doesn't feel sad. It's the same life that most of us have. It pushes along, and you wake up one day, you're in the same town. You didn't get away. She was the top of her class when she was 16, and the moment seemed endless. Things were easy back then. When you're young and free and you're living in the bright sunlight, your dreams will be a guiding light, your radar against the dark. When you fly so high, it feels like you never come down. There's no one to listen now, so turn on the radio. When you're young and free and you're living in the bright sunlight, your dreams will be a guiding light, your radar against the dark. When you fly so high, it feels like you never come down. There's no one to listen now, so turn on the radio. When you're young and free and you're living in the bright sunlight, your dreams will be a guiding light, your radar against the dark. When you fly so high, it feels like you never come down. There's no one to listen now, so turn on the radio. When you're young and free and you're living in the bright sunlight, your dreams will be a guiding light, your radar against the dark.
Social distancing variety hour. That was new music from This American Song. It's called Radar. It's from their new upcoming thing, and I don't know what it's called because they haven't told us. And before that, that was a film by Shirley Clark called Bridges Go Round. Monica Igras is here. Oh, there she is. Hi, Monica Igras. Oh, you had to go. You had to go get your tequila. Okay, I see what it's like.
I just feel better just seeing you, lady. You're the bomb. Before we get into anything crazy, I read something while I was out having my nicotine fit. Sources are reporting that NYPD commissioner and chief of department are resigning, and between 300 and 800 officers are retiring immediately.
Wow.
So these things work. And the fact that, some woman in Erie got sprayed and then kicked, but the officer just kind of gently pushed her on the shoulder is bullshit. So
yeah.
Let's,
I don't know. That video looks really doctored to me.
Yeah, it looks super doctored. So these things are working, and taking to the streets is working, and the protest work. I've read a few things in the last couple of days about how sit-ins in Montgomery lasted for months, and busing lasted for months, and these things all lasted so long just to get to this point where, you know, only so many people are killed every day by cops. Right. But, you know, and racism only exists on so many levels because of this, but these things went on forever. And so don't stop, don't give up, don't quit. These things work in time to the point, but this is a different time. But let's not let me talk about it. Let's let our resident good girl talk about how important all these things are. How's that tequila?
You know, I have a lot of actual work to do tonight, even though, you know, I work from home. But, you know, as an educator, so much of my work is like on Sunday at 11 o'clock or whatever, you know. Kind of a little bit of tequila helps.
Yeah, a little bit. So for those of you that weren't with us last week, Monica checked in with us and let us know what's what, because the white perspective is overdone on this show that started out as a fun little goofy thing for Adam and I to do to keep ourselves sane, and has morphed into you know, whatever this is now. But having people of color and
something approaching
like
something
Monica,
resembling journalism.
Yeah.
Well, it's an exciting time for you guys to document everything that's happening, especially locally, you know?
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
It's you know, what else do you do with this privilege, aside from speed and you know, smoke dope? So Monica, how are you?
I'm pretty amazing. You know, busy. You know, work, life, and family. I'm moving, so that's like a big deal. So I got a lot of things going on. And then organizing, you know, because that's what we need, right?
Yeah.
Right now, for what's going on here locally in our community.
Well, you've always been active. I mean, for those that don't know, Monica is probably one of, if not the most brilliant poets, not just in the community, but just, you know, if you've ever wanted to feel things and be horny, go see Monica do a reading, because it's an experience in and of itself, to have someone tell you what's what and feel good about feeling bad, but not only your own lived experience, but now being a mother and having, you know, not just sons, but brilliant sons that at any moment could be just, I can't even begin to fathom the things that go through your head, and knowing how brilliant you are and how talented you are and how in touch with the community and society and people you are, to see things like this and to feel the joy of everyone getting known or trying to understand, and then still dealing with the fact that this world is fucked. And yet here you are. So a week later, what do you know? What do you feel?
It's very overwhelming. So, you know, your black and brown friends are not okay right now, man.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming. You know, I'm not black, you know, I'm a first generation American, I'm half Filipino. I've been mistaken for black in America, and trust me, that was enough. Right? I have 3 kids. 2 of my kids would be considered black. It doesn't matter what else they are, you know?
Yeah.
My son said to me the other day, he said, you know, when people ask me what, because Michael is very ambiguous. My younger son is very ambiguous as far as, like, the dude looks Indian or something, you know, like, we don't know what he is, but people ask him all the time, like, what his background is. And he just tells them he's black and Filipino. And I thought, wow, that's like really interesting, because my father's from England. He's a white guy. he had a big role in their life. And my son looked at me and he said to me, he goes, well, when people see me, they don't see white at all. So I already know what they're asking.
Right.
So I just tell them I'm Black and Filipino. Isn't that wild? It's like a whole erasure of a whole part of his upbringing and his culture, you know?
Well,
so no, it's terrifying having
as a
kids.
white guy, I'm content to be the boring part that he doesn't feel like talking about.
My dad was an interesting guy, but I get it. Like, I get what he says.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter whatever part of him is that. Like, either of the boys aren't going to be looked at as that, you know?
Right.
You know, if they get pulled over or followed around a store, or, you know, some kid's racist dad who thinks that she shouldn't be dating my kid, you know, like,
right.
It doesn't matter if you got a full ride for academics, or that you're a member of the military, or that you've never been in trouble in your life. You know, you have all these biases that are just sort of built in. And you know, people don't realize what that's like. So right now, you know, there's a lot of grief in our house. You know, and my one son he's stationed across the country right now. And he just called me in anguish the other day, hollering, just like, why is this happening? I mean, it's very traumatic.
Yeah.
It's very traumatic for your Black and brown friends, because, you know, we grow up with a very different experience of life. You know, I had family members, my grandparents wouldn't watch me because they were racist when I was a kid. You know what I'm saying? It's like, or the neighbor's mom who, when I was 10, was calling me the N-word, or, you know, that job I took in Crawford County where the surgeons wouldn't speak to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have all these things that happen in your life experience. And like, you know, right now, like, we're tired, man, and we're upset. Like, every drop of racism you ever had poured on you was like bubbling, you know? So I'm thankful for, you know, my all white friends, you know, or my white passing friends who are putting themselves out there, because we're collectively, I can't speak for everybody. Like I said, I can't speak for Black people, but, you know, we're grieving, you know, we're grieving in our house.
Yeah.
Very traumatic.
What have you seen locally recently? Because I know that it was just such a fucking sham to just be like, this is a state of emergency. And I was like, well, you could, you know, throw that up every day in this fucking place, because there's always something going on that's wrong here. But and I saw it with Occupy too, where, you know, even some African American members that were of city council that just laughed in our faces about equality when that was going on, and just didn't, you know, just like, it's so, I don't know, it's crazy to me that we live in this place and you can't keep anything going, because there's always, you know, because it's 1 degree of separation, and because you're always going to try to well, I can't go there because this person's there, and I can't believe this because this person said this, and yet it's necessary. So what's going on now that's going to help, or that's going to change things that you're seeing?
I don't know. I am optimistic because people are still going out there every day, right? Yeah. Now, Michael, you know, like, I don't know, when Erie has a protest, it's like the same 12 people all the time. There's never a turnout. You know, when I showed up on the first Saturday and saw how many people were there, I promise you, I cried immediately. I was like, look at all these people who are showing up and saying enough. So, you know, what will it change? I don't know. Hopefully they'll give up the officer's name. Yeah. And instead of putting them behind a desk, do something else. How about that? I don't want to see you kneeling with me or bringing in people who vote against us. I'm not applauding for any of that, right? You know, what's his name?
Yeah.
How about that? Where are all of our good cops at now?
So were you at the clergy-led event yesterday? I mean, either of you, I guess you or Tyler, were either of you at the clergy-led thing yesterday? Mm-mm. I
can't say that I was.
I had some friends who went out for that, and it looked like there was like really good turnout for it, which is cool, I guess. But you know, I also heard that like people were applauding for Mike Kelly there, and like,
yes, you know, I wasn't there, so I can't really speak to I really can't speak to what they did there. I heard the same thing. I heard that the SWAT team rolled by with the doors open when everybody was kneeling.
I heard that too.
So, for me, it's like, what is it going to do? Now, I'm a little bit out there, and how I let my personal activism is different than that. So it's an ideological difference, that's holding a sign really is not my jam, and kneeling in front of the police is definitely not my jam, and applauding for Kelly, it's not going to happen.
Really not your jam.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just not, but that being said, I don't want to take away from the fact that people are showing up and people really believe and are really tired. So whatever they're doing, even if it's complying and not being too disruptive, I'm glad they're still out there, right?
Yeah, I think, Monica, you just made an excellent point. Like, protests definitely, they serve a purpose, and they show numbers. So people who need visuals, so people who are maybe the visual learners, like they can see the numbers here. But just very similar to you, like I will go to most protests, and we're also amidst a pandemic, and I have the privilege of not of being able to not be like out exposing or like carrying it and passing it on. I have that privilege. I'm able to do my work from home, and I feel like for me, being able to lift up Black lives was me staying at home and doing, who are my networks? Who am I leaning on? What can I work on? What programs can I get up here? Whose voices am I lifting up? Well, not everybody has those networks. So for me, it mattered more, just like you were saying, Monica. That's not my level of activism. That level of activism is important, but it can't stop there, right? It can't. And that's my fear, is when we see these protests that people are like, yeah, I marched and we hella marched. And I'm like, that's hella great. And then what? Like and then what? Then what? Where do we take it next?
Yes. How about, so this is the interesting thing. Okay. So we saw Hannah get maced and kicked over, and it's outrageous, right? That is a reality for many people every day. Now, I grew up on 11th and Wallace. Okay. Actually, I recently moved into my mother's house to clean out her estate. So I'm back here, ironically. All right. So all of my friends that I grew up with, this is nothing new.
Yeah.
So we know about the people who are murdered by police, but what about the people who aren't? There are police officers' names in Erie, Pennsylvania, that if you rattle off 3 of them to anyone, any Black man in Erie, maybe 3 names, they would all have the same exact response. Because these people are out here, they've been out here for a very long time. I have friends who have been picked up by police, pistol whooped, and let go.
Yeah.
That happens. And it happens all the time. And, and we don't ever see it.
All the things that were never on video, all the things that no one ever captured, all of the things that no one else ever saw, that no one ever believed. And I was reminded of a term that I'd heard before, test-a-lying, where the cops come in and they find the guy that did it, and I love using air quotes on the video because when I'm on the radio, I can't, but test-a-lying, where a cop comes in and just says, yeah, case closed. This guy, we got him. And it's not, and it never is. And you just, the institutional idea that cops are always right, and that cops are always good, and they're always looking out for the best interest of everyone, isn't true in this myth that dies.
And that they're to be believed, and that they're to be believed just by virtue of the fact that they're cops.
Yeah,
and so that's we know that they are also human.
Yeah, right. Exactly, Monica. That's what I was gonna say. And we know that they're human, and we know human error, and we know, and also, like, we can't erase the fact of crisis, like what crisis does and can do to a brain. But when you are literally trained and you are equipped with a set of skills, and those are the set of skills that you are given, what set of skills are you going to utilize? Have you looked at, like, so I just went, like, just out of curiosity, I went on just like looking at Mercyhurst's like curriculum for cops, right? And what they, like, for the Act 120. And if you look at the Act 120, it takes it just takes a few months to get through. It's a dedication. Like, it's pretty solid in the sense of, like, you've got to commit a bit of time, but not a lot of time. not a lot of time to have the amount of power that you need to have. And what are we equipping these officers with? And the fact that, you know, my friend Jay Brenneman, and I'm sure you guys all saw him, like he was just commenting, like, the things that we have allowed police officers to do, they're not allowed to use in war. Like, these are tactics that are barred from even using when we're in war. I mean, how do you really know what's going to go on? That's a whole different conversation. But I think what we need to look at too is we are funneling money into a system that does not work. And I'm not saying that cops like are horrendous humans. I'm not. What I am saying is we have created a system that produces people who are like, this is what we are producing. And so we have got to look, we've got to step back, and we are setting cops up. We are setting cops up to fail, and then that's ultimately brutalizing one section more than any other of our community. And if we've got to take the why all the way back.
The question is, it does work, but who is it working for?
Yes.
Right.
That's the question.
Yes.
Because in America, there are 5 million people in the criminal justice system.
Yes.
And it's an overwhelmingly Black population.
Yes.
Sure.
Period.
Yeah.
It is oppression. And there is no two way about that. There's no two ways. So it does work, but it's not working for the people.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
And I've heard
specifically Black people and minorities.
The argument, that, well, white people are murdered too. Correct, but at a lower percentage rate. But there are more white people within America, right? Well, right now, and so that number should
at like
be
8%.
Statistically higher. Statistically, if you're looking at stats and you are doing data, that number should be higher if we're looking at the police murder rate. But it's not.
Right.
But it's not. And so when we start, yes. Go ahead, sorry, Monica. I'm getting like, whoa, but it's your turn.
Per capita, and if somebody, whoever's listening, go ahead, please Google it. I feel like per capita, I feel like whites are murdered by police at 8% or killed, and I think Blacks are murdered maybe 23 or 24% per capita. You feel me? Mm-hmm. That's an alarming disparity. It's alarming. Yeah. If it's not alarming to anyone, it should be.
And when people say, "Oh, well, this white guy was killed by cops. Why aren't you out protesting?" You're right. Why aren't we? Why aren't we all out there for everyone that has been killed by a fucking cop? That, whether you're speeding, whether you're whatever instance that you're doing, like, you should not be killed by someone. It takes more hours to get your beautician's license to cut hair at Supercuts than it does to be an Erie police officer. You spend more time at Tony and Guy than you do at the police academy.
Wow.
That's pretty fucked up.
That is.
That's pretty scary. Well, and then you also have to consider, like Tyler said, they're people, right? They're people. So we can have as many officers as we want, but we cannot, okay, you're educated, fine. All right. You go through whatever you go through, you learn, you train, but we're not removing people's biases and their prejudices.
Right.
Okay. And then you take in the number of people who are, like, let's say veterans who have PTSD, who come from combat situations, right? Who are more likely to pull out a gun, or who might have some PTSD, right?
Well, and you get into
it's a really
problematic culture of, like, how are they being taught? How are they being trained? Like, there's been all this talk about all this, like, warrior training for cops. And, like, that they're taught that, like, they are the soldier, they are the warrior hero, this is their war zone, whoever they're policing are the enemy. And, like, just that's
well, if you look at the video of Tamir Rice, they did everything wrong.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What happened there? Right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I have friends who are Marines who have protocol before they kill people in war situations that our police aren't enacting on, little kids playing in the park, right?
Right.
That's a problem.
Or women sleeping in their bed, or a man, and so, like, we didn't even go there. Like it's just like, it is
no knock warrant on the wrong house.
Yeah.
For someone who's incarcerated already. I think the difference between Breonna Taylor and George Floyd is, we talked about this last week. When Breonna Taylor was murdered, I was like, it's about to go down. People are going to riot over this. This is happening. And then nothing happened. And I couldn't believe it.
Which was weird.
And I think the difference is we saw George Floyd die in front of our eyes.
Yeah.
You know, just like seeing the people who show up for the protest, like Adam said, is important. It makes it a very tangible thing, and it was very cut and dry that he was murdered flatly, right? And to be able to see that made it very real. The same way, you know, looking at the girl Hannah who got maced and kicked, you know, she's relatable to a lot of people where it's not normally relatable, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Where if it were one of my sons, it would have been, well, what did he do?
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
You know?
And at what point power? You know, at what point are you excused from your humanity? You know, at what point can you just do as you please in order to, like, any kind of quota? Like, you know, at the end of the month when you can't speed because they got to make up their ticket book, you know, like that kind of shit. Like how
at the point qualified immunity was put into the law books, and like that's where so much of this discussion comes about, and qualified immunity has made it almost impossible, and it has given an ability legally to engage in ways that that throw out all social norms and the social construct that people have to follow. So when we look at the legalities, and where people are like, what do I protest? Like, what do I go against? I'm like, look at qualified immunity.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, like, if we could just bring it down so people are held to the equitable standard. Like, we don't do this shit because we're humans. We don't do this because that is a life, and we value life, all life. And it is like, when we look at it, is given a free ticket, and there are research studies done on this. When you give somebody that amount of power, it changes the dynamic. The power dynamic shifts, and scary shit happens. Scary shit happens when there is a power dynamic in place. And you don't need to go. It's any organization you walk into, you can see when a power shift is in place, what happens to the one who's higher up, to the one who's seen as the subordinate. And we have shown America, well, not just America, but we have shown all colonized countries what we think of the black body, right? We have shown it, and we have taught the value of the black body. And it is a power dynamic. And we have got, that's why black, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to take your space, Monica, and that's just like, it pisses me off. It just pisses me off that it took, what if George Floyd hadn't died? Right. And we just watch him get that close. Would we still be here? And that makes me sick to my stomach, because I don't know that we would.
I don't think that we would.
And the reality is, there are too many to name.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are too many to name. There are too many Black Americans who were killed by police for us to sit here and name.
Right.
And those are the ones we know about. Those were the ones that were sensationalized.
Well, and
listen, I had a brother who died from a gunshot wound in the 90s. Okay. He was an unsavory character. He had some things that he was involved in that were not good things. What happens when you have a family member who dies from a gunshot wound is this. You have a meeting at the police station. They bring in a detective. Your whole family is there, and they sort of debrief you. Okay. So they brought us in. You know, we saw the gun that he was shot with. The whole nine. Do you know what happened that day when I walked into the police station? Are you curious to know? Yeah. So my brother, I was aware of my brother's lifestyle, but my mother wasn't, because he was a house angel. He would never have disrespected my mother or my father or the house, right? But he had this lifestyle. So at the time, my oldest son was like in the carrier, the thing, the little that goes in the pram, right? You know, you carry the baby. And I walked into that meeting room, and the detective in charge of the investigation said very quietly to me in my ear, "We know who your brother is." What does that mean for me or him or your investigation? He really said that to me. You're telling me that I lost my loved one. And to me alone, very quietly in my ear, you tell me you know who he is. What does that mean? It means that he was shot in the head with a rifle in the temple, and it was ruled an accidental suicide.
I mean, I'm 6'4" on a good day, and I don't think I could hold a rifle to my temple for my suicide.
No.
Thank you.
Of course, pills will be my answer, but anyway, like.
Do you see the problem here, though?
Oh, yeah.
Do you see the problem here? That's a big problem.
Well, and it's like you're walking in the door, and he's already been, like, they're already diminishing him.
Right.
It's already his
again,
fault.
it's an accidental suicide. My parents had him cremated so he couldn't be exhumed. And that is where it stays. But this is just my story.
Yeah.
How many other people here are walking around with that story in Erie? This wasn't in Los Angeles. This wasn't in, some podunk town down south. This is my story. You know me,
Yeah.
Most of you, except for Tyler, know me, This is my story. This is real life.
Well,
real life.
You were talking about
and that man
how
might
there
be retired by now.
So many black men killed by cops that we can't even name them all. But that doesn't even get into, the Ahmaud Arbery's of the world who were killed by not exactly cops, but racist white dudes who used to be cops. And
are you ready?
Yeah.
Are you ready? Are you ready for this, Adam?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, girl.
In a fit of the seriously frightening, I was on my cousin's porch the other day, the day after a Sunday, after everything popped off, right?
Yeah.
And he ordered a pizza. And I'm sitting there talking to him until the pizza comes. And the guy gets out and he delivers the pie. And you can hear a lot of fireworks going off and a lot of sirens and things. I looked at my cousin and I said, hey, man, I really might have to go and make sure everybody's okay and safe.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because, I'm medically trained. That's
right.
What I do. Right. I said, I might have to go. And the guy, oh, my God, guys. So the guy looks at me and he's like, yeah, I might have to tell my boss I got to go down there, too. And I was like, oh, word? That's what's up,
Right.
Oh, yeah, right? And then he says, yes, me and my boogaloo friends have all our AR-15s ready. We're going to go stand there and help out the police.
Oh.
Erie, Pennsylvania.
Yikes.
It is happening. They are here. They are well armed. They are organized. This is what people can't understand, how frightening that idea is.
Yeah.
You look at that march, that, anti-quarantine march where, armed white men walked into federal buildings with weapons. That was a test run to see how much resistance they would get.
And how much resistance they got was fucking none.
None.
And it
hi guys.
Yeah,
how are you guys?
Yeah, I know.
I
feel like I could go stand on State Street with a rifle I do not own, with a permit I do not have, and I would not be harassed and I would not be thought of twice. And, I could shout White Lives Matter and Blue Lives. And I've been out in the county for a few weeks because of my job, and the number of just disrespectful people about what's going on with the virus and everything else is beyond it. But the number of people that just don't care and wear these Blue Lives masks and Trump masks and just these other things that are just and it's so ingrained. It is so ingrained and so deep that I don't know how you get through to people, especially in Erie where the population differential is inconsequential. If you never go east of State Street and you never go south of 26th Street within the city, you might never know. You may never know. I mean, Adam and I talked about this at the open of the show. I grew up in Mill Creek and went to Grandview and went to Westlake, and it wasn't until high school that there were more than 3 or 4 people of color in a class. And there's
a very segregated.
Yeah, very, very. And then
redlining. That was the
thing. Absolutely. Yeah. And not only that, but then the people of color that you do meet are very house oriented, let's say, if I may be so bold.
This is crazy. So like I'm mixed, and but I have a racist family. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's pretty wild to me. It's like my mom. I'm glad I'm not glad, but like, God bless that she can't hear these comments anymore because she would be really bad. But my mom was like the Black Klansman from Dave Chappelle. Y'all know who the Black Klansman is from Dave Chappelle?
Right.
Yeah.
That was my mom. Okay. So my mom's from the Philippines, but she's extraordinarily dark, like legitimately, like, she got mistaken for black all the time, right?
But like, you got a British dad, and look at you.
She was yeah. But she was very much right wing, and like I mean, her Facebook was like, "Immigrants go home." I'm like, you are a naturalized citizen. You do realize that? Like, it was crazy, right? But she was racist.
Immigrants go home, but not my friends.
She was racist. But not me or your dad, like, because they were both immigrants, to be honest. They're both naturalized, but neither one of them were born. They're different islands, okay?
Yeah.
So
different islands.
But she was still racist, which is a weird thing in and of itself. But that's again has roots in colonization and assimilation. It's a whole side note, right? But I remember one day she was like, "Black people." I was like, "Well, which black people? Your grandkids?" "Well, not them." I was like, "Okay, Mom. Well, how many black people do you know?" "I don't know. About 40, because my kids are attached to a large black family."
Yeah.
Right? Who, by the way, are all homeowners, long-time married, college educated, beautiful people. Okay? I've known them over 20 years, almost 30 years, I've been in this family, right? I said, what black people are you talking about? Those black people? Well, not them. Well, the reality is like every family got that one cousin that just isn't right. I mean, I'm sure you guys probably have someone in your, maybe it's you, I don't know, like you got that one cousin, that's just not doing anything right. I had a brother, he was that one cousin, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
But for the majority, and it's exposure, right? Like, if you don't actually know real black people and you grew up with these whole ideas, like, man, it's really not like that.
Right.
My kid's great grandfather was a retired cop. He was a brother, right? Like, everybody is super upstanding. His first cousin, that's the same age, a group together. She's going to be an FBI agent. Okay, like
right.
These are black people in America. They're real black people in America that I know and love and know very well. But it's very strange. Like, racism's a weird thing, man. Like, you have people racist against someone that they've never really had interaction with, and that's bizarre to me. How?
Absolutely. Like, my maternal grandparents were very of their time and very racist. And my after my grandfather passed, one of my uncles had a mixed son, and my grandmother would talk about it. I mean, and there's probably a 30-year difference, if not more, at this point between us. But and she would be like, "Oh, he has a job. He's swimming." Like, all this stuff, like, "Grandma, what the fuck?" Like, do you not know, like, this woman that loves golf and would hate watch Tiger Woods, and now all of a sudden she has a grandson that's half black, and just can't like, the love of a child is there, but the understanding of her whole life and her whole being and everything she's ever been taught and told, because racism is taught and told, absolutely taught and told.
Yeah.
But it would still be this thing where, like, this is
cognitive dissonance.
Family. Yeah. Just, like, don't worry, he's one of the good ones. Like, what the fuck, just, and it's boggling to me that loss of any humanity, where it's so easy, like we were talking about with Tyler before, where it's so much easier to see a person of color and be like, there's my hate, or to see someone prancing and say, there's my hate.
That's different for me.
That's different, yeah, and it is definitely part of the culture, the education, the mindset, and the hegemony of a capitalist society.
Well, it's also
which,
it's also such a fear-based thing. Like, so
well, you're much easier to control when you're afraid.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, we already know. Like, I used to know a guy who would routinely protest outside of the courthouse and antagonize law enforcement. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
But he was a white guy.
That loves him.
But he was a white guy, right?
Right.
Let me tell you right now, if he were a brother, he would have been taken down and hauled off.
Yeah.
Period.
Like a white guy who's doing that is sort of like, oh, he's so charmingly eccentric.
If I have some idea about who you're talking about, and if he was a brother, he would not exist. Like,
no, he wouldn't exist. There would have been guns drawn. Yes.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
A black man of the same size and stature. Forget about it. It wouldn't have happened. Period.
So there are two things that are kind of like rolling around in my brain as I'm listening, and one of those being we've created like this belief that racism will end once the old people die away, right? And we've already kind of disproven that theory. It's not right. And so I think, and there is this sense of like, oh, that's just them. That's how they're going to be like. And I really don't buy. I call total bullshit on that. Like, I really do call total bullshit on that. I do think we can hold people who are in their 80s accountable for racism. I do think that we can say that, no, that's a fundamentally flawed view, and let me show you why. However, that ownership does not fall within the minority person to educate anybody. And when I said this earlier before, is there's blood, sweat, tears, literally in the education that we need to have as white folk to get it. It is out there. It is, and in the most wealthiest space, America, supposedly. I mean, that's debatable now, but we still have access to all this literature. Like, we have access to it at the tip of our hands, most of us. But there's internet inequity and technology inequity we can get into in a minute. Sure. But we have the ability. It is a conscious decision to not understand. It is a conscious decision to not take accountability and educate yourself. It is freely available. It is freely available, and we are choosing. We are choosing to not do it. And I get so frustrated when I hear some of that dialogue going on, that like it's oh, that's just so and so, or that they're rural, or like, you know, that's just that small town and that's how they think. Bullshit. Absolutely bullshit.
Yeah.
They can. And the person that it's not responsible to do, it is not responsible for the Monicas of the world. It's not responsible for like me of the world, or
for the Tylers of the world.
Right. Yeah. It's not for our job to go out there and be like, I want you to understand my plight. Like, I want you to understand my lived experience. I will educate, because I mean, I have a lot of fulfillment in this, but I'm getting to the point in my life, and that you saw that kind of unfold this week, where I don't feel like I owe you that shit. I don't. Like, I'm not going to handle it.
Good for you.
We've got to take some accountability in this.
Yeah, and you can no longer use you as this chip of you're my trans friend. Yeah. You're on my council, so everything's so I can just
I'm not homophobic.
Yeah, because look,
I've got one trans friend.
I say this, I don't mean it like that. I just say this to mean
they
uncool.
know.
Like, no, man. Right, Tyler? Like, it's tiresome. Hey, listen, guys. Like, truly, I don't know. You know, I'm on that Seth Rogen right now.
Oh,
F you, F your mama, F your dad. Like, I don't have the bandwidth to explain about looting or rioting or, you know,
why all lives
racism.
Don't matter.
I mean, unless why it's not all lives matter. Right. Like, unless you've experienced racism from the time you were born, from your family members, from educators, from employers, from shopkeepers, from random strangers, from your neighbors, like, you can't. And I'm just on that Seth Rogen.
Yeah. Right. And I like big middle finger. You should, and that is unapologetically fucking own it, because it is not your job. Yes. It's not your job. And that's what pisses me off so much. It's not. And it is, Black and brown people are mourning in a way and grieving in a way that is so surreal that we as white people cannot fathom. We can't. We can empathize to a degree, but we will never get close to what they are experiencing right now. We won't, because it is day in, day out, generation after generation. And for us to look to Black people right now and be like, help me understand. Yeah. I just, and then you, I want to
disown your parents.
Stand in front of them and just like flip people out.
Disown like, your parents.
Like, no. Yes.
Overthrow your local officials.
Yeah.
Demand badge numbers.
Yeah.
You know, demand prosecution. Okay.
Right? And I don't want to hear like,
bail people out.
The way you change minds. Well, yes, clearly sitting down isn't the way you change minds either. Like, being like, yes sir, yes ma'am is not how you change a damn mind either.
Right.
Put your body in between the bodies of Black protesters and get yourself fucked up. Period. Point blank. Yep. And I mean that's what I'm saying. That is exactly 100% what I'm saying. Because there's more outrage about Hannah than there is about all of the numerous people who were actually killed.
Yeah.
People who were actually killed.
Yeah, a nice old white guy in Buffalo who gets knocked over, becomes like international outrage, and how many Black people that we're not hearing about?
I can't. And I'm sorry, and I know like this is the white guy coming in and chiming in, but it blows my mind that it is taking white people now to get assaulted on tape. And now suddenly, we're down there. There are decades of documented cases in Erie, of documented cases of police brutality that we have just like, I can't believe this happens in Erie. I can't tell you how many young Black men I have sat with by the age of 6, by the age of 7, by the age of 8. They've had a gun pulled on them by a police officer, or they have watched one of their family members be gunned down. And the fact that we can sit here and say, this doesn't happen in Erie.
Right.
A quick Google search shows you that it's wrong. This has been happening since the police came to Erie, which and it's documented case after document, and it blows my fucking mind that we're just now, like,
it's a white girl getting kicked in front of Jimmy John's that makes us realize that it's a problem.
And what happened to her is incredibly wrong, and that officer should be held to justice. And I'm not undermining what is happening there, but God damn it, like we don't like every person that has come in front of her, every Black and brown person that has come in front of her deserves the same amount of justice.
Right.
Which is zero.
On Monday, the man, one of the protesters who was accused of making a makeshift bomb, is already facing a judge.
Yeah.
Already.
Isn't that? How long did it take to arrest How long did it take to arrest all of the officers in George Floyd's case?
Right.
Oh, right.
That is a prime. Yes.
How long? And then this guy who gets picked up, he's going to face federal charges. By the way, right? Yeah. Well, we got Brock Turner walking around.
Yeah.
Yes.
What happened?
And like the guy who set Ember and Forge on fire has already been arrested, but whoever the cop is who kicked the girl over in Perry Square, we still don't fucking know who he is.
And how are you going to
but Adam, he should have moved. Yeah, give him up. If you're where are these good cops at? Give them up.
Right.
Give them up.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to hear anything.
I think what we've seen come out of Buffalo, what we've seen come out of Buffalo this week.
And look, and that's once again because of that axiom that white people drop all the time. Oh, there's few bad apples. Well, there's more to that. Few bad apples spoil the whole bunch. Because if you're not turning in your blue brothers and sisters that are doing this bullshit, then you are part of the problem. Just like if you're an accessory,
spoiling you.
Yeah, if Adam did something, if Adam was in a hit and run, and I put his car in my garage and said nothing happened, you can't find it,
few bad
and
apples.
They found out I'm just as bad as he is because I'm hiding it. And that's what's happening now. And I do not think that humanity is bad. And I do not think that as a human being, cops. Yes, I do. I fucking hate people and I hate everything about it. And I don't care who you are, what color, race, gender, anything. I hate you because I hate myself. But I'm tired of this axiom and understanding that this isn't real because it's a problem within the culture of the blue lives,
right?
That they are protected at any point and they are excused for their things because they're trying to do justice. But that justice only exists to protect a class of people that need to keep everyone else down in order to succeed.
Well said. It's well said. And that's the truth.
Sad as shit.
It's the truth. And the truth is like, what people don't, and what you guys were talking earlier about people, I think it was you, Tyler, you know, there are people, you know, who are otherwise good people, right? Who are racist. It's not always a straight up Klan hood, right?
Right.
Like I said, I loved my grandparents. They were still racist. My mother, who's blacker than half the black people I know, was still which is bizarre, but that's remnants of colonization, you know. But what the reality is people don't like to acknowledge racism, even if they think they're not racist, because they are benefiting from it. Privilege is very real, and you know that. And I think, Tyler, I think that you're very interesting because, again, like you said earlier, everyone looks at you as a white man, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is a privilege in that.
Yeah.
There's a privilege in that, you know, period. You know, your word is more valid. It's more acceptable, even if it's something they disagree with, as opposed to you and I could stand here on the same platform and say the same exact thing. But you know what happens then? All of a sudden, I'm aggressive.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a little bit of pancake and a little straightener, and you'll be all right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, a little bit of straightener. I know, a little bit of straightener. You know, but the reality is like people don't want to address racism because they don't want to acknowledge the fact that they are benefiting from that.
Right.
And it can be small things.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I wish people like had the same. I wish people had the same emotional response that they do to being called racist than being actually racist, right? Like there is more of a visceral response than somebody saying to you that's racist, than there is acknowledging what you did. Like instead of like owning it and being in that moment and learning that what I just did supports white supremacy or what I did is anti-black or anti-brown. They will spend more energy in defending what they did. Even if it is a black or brown person standing in front of them saying, what you just did hurt me, they will spend more energy arguing on why they are a good person versus and why they're not racist. Yeah. And that is just another one of those mind-blowing, baffling things. Like there's just, again, white fragility. And I know I'm on the kick of that because I'm in that book right now.
And the whole denial,
it is
and the whole denial
so
of white privilege thing.
Are you kidding?
It's
and
like
every white person has it. We can't escape it.
Oh yeah,
we were indoctrinated. We can't.
But
white
there's like
people
there's
are racist.
this
we,
there's
we,
this like
that we have to own that and build from it.
There's this like fetishizing of the bootstraps. Like no, I don't have privilege. Like I earned all this myself.
Don't even get me started there.
Oh yikes!
You know, like, I got called a racist. I got called a racist earlier this week, which is, don't even get me started with how I can't be racist. Don't even get me started there. But I got called a racist. So there was this guy, and normally, you know, I don't engage people on the internet.
Right.
Look, man, I have pretty good boundaries.
Don't read the comments.
Like you're with me or you're against me, and I'm pretty good. I'm on that Seth Rogen. I'm just really not trying to, like Tyler said, it's not our job to, as marginalized people, it's not my job to educate anyone. I don't have the energy, first of all. I'm worried about keeping my kids alive, okay? Excuse the fuck out of me.
Yeah.
But I get in this argument with this guy, you know, it's the father of a friend of mine, and he makes this long Facebook post. He's one of these, like, let me go get my haircut people, you know. And he makes this long post about how he's not a racist, and sometimes he uses the N-word, but, you know, he's just not a racist guy. And I, you know, I was like, you know, are you telling me, like, are you going to call your grandkid the N-word, or is it just black people you don't know? And then it just, like, escalated into a total shitstorm, right?
Yeah.
And it was like, and I'm going to admit, you know, where normally I could be patient and articulate, no, really, I was just like, you're scum. And, you know, I was on that Seth Rogen, you know, I was just on it like, hey,
fuck
and your
you,
mom.
fuck your mama.
And then he said that I was like one of the most racist people he had ever met of her friends. And I was like, because I called you out on your racism. Now I'm the most racist person you've ever met. Right. How? And by his definition, because then he said his grandson, he goes, well, my grandson's also white. Well, guess what, sir? So am I. But you're not looking at me like that right now, are you? Right. Now all of a sudden I'm just flaming racist because I called you out on using the N-word casually. Oh, but I mostly use it when joking with my white friends. Mostly.
Racism, and that's what
this is real.
Racism,
these people exist.
It can only exist if there's an element of power, right? There isn't a thing as reverse racism. That's not a thing. And that's the other thing that blows my mind. No, because that's not like there's no power shift there. In no universe in America is a black or brown person ever above a white person in the power dynamic. It's just not. And that doesn't, so we can't, that is a gaslighting and abusive technique that people utilize to make themselves feel better. Like, well, you're just you're racist because you're anti-white. No, that's actually not a thing. That's not a thing.
Like, I'm actually half white, but yeah. Well, it's funny. It's funny. This is it's probably way like, it's a whole other topic, but it's really funny to me. Well, first of all, don't even get me started on my whole theory of the hierarchy of minorities, because that's a whole nother thing. Asians, I can tell you as an Asian, they're racist against everybody, even each other. And they're like, fuck white people too. So like, really, according to the whole Asian world, they're like, forget everybody, we're the best. And that's also like not cool, but whatever. But that's a side note. But where was I going with this? I forgot. I totally lost my train of thought. But it's just kind of like very interesting to me to think about how people say these things, because they're like, oh yeah, well, you know, no, man, like nobody's looking at me like I'm all the way white. Although somebody did mistake me for being all the way white yesterday, which I was like, wow, that's different, you know, okay.
I will go to the front of the line. I will take this bank loan. Oh,
I will. I'm going to talk to the manager right now.
I will join this country club.
You know, I'm going to talk to the manager right now, but no, I totally lost my train of thought, guys. Tyler, I'm sorry, guys.
Well, what bothers me the most is that there are so many more white people that I hate. Like, I mean, because it never occurs to me to think in lines of color, because that's too easy, and I don't like to do things easily. It's such a cop out to me, and fuck cops, but it's such a cop out to me to just hate someone based on their race or their gender or their sexuality.
There are so many other good reasons to hate people.
There's so many better reasons to hate people, and so being such a discerning person of hate, there are so many more horrible, terrible white people I know than any person of color I've ever met, and so true. It baffles me that it would be so easy to just broad brush everything. I had he passed a few years ago when his cancer came back, but I had a man that I called Dad too. That was very, very dear to me, and it was just after after one of the nameless, numerous black men had been killed, and it was in the news, and it was a kind of family dinner gathering thing, and it just kept saying like, oh, I don't know how they can do this. And I just said, when was the last time you broke bread with a black person? And he almost choked on his food because he couldn't answer. And then my mother jumped in to change the subject. And my mother's a social worker, and she's a beautiful person. And she is the guiding light of my life that loves everyone for who they are and believes in the magic and the possibility of everyone. So that kind of, cuts the psychopathy of my existence out of me. But she jumped in, and I drove her home that night, and I was just like, why did you do that? And she's like, I don't want the fight. Now, I want the fight.
Yeah.
I want the fight. I want everyone to know that it's too easy. It's too simple. It's beneath you. If and it's funny to me, but it's not. But if there's this white supremacy that exists, if there's this, white culture that exists above all else, then why are you so base in your levels of denigration? Like, why can you not find better reasons to hate people? Because
they don't need to. Yeah. They don't need to.
Yeah, and like if there's white supremacy, like, is this the best we can be doing, really?
It's really kind of wild because here I go on my shit, but I'm going there. Okay.
Oh, go on.
That's why we have.
I'm a minority, right? I'm a woman. I'm brown. Like, I'm a minority. That's laughable, y'all, because 80% of the world's population looks something like me.
Yep.
The real question is, I'm a minority in what? Power? Maybe, yeah. Mm-hmm. Right? But number? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
80%. We're, when we talk about racism, it is so, and Tyler, you touched on it earlier, and it's not just America, it's mostly globally. It is so ingrained, and these are all remnants of colonization. I get it. I understand. The Spanish colonized us for hundreds of years, and that was a whole scene. But the reality is 80% of the world's population is Black and brown, man. So what are we a minority in? And what is the real fear? And your mom not wanting the fight. Well, that's what we need. You don't want the fight because you're uncomfortable, but guess what? I'm uncomfortable. I've been talking to my boys about how not to get killed by the police since they were 11.
Yeah.
That's uncomfortable.
That's a lot more uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable to know
than
that,
than an unpleasant dinner
that's
conversation.
Uncomfortable. How about fuck your uncle and fuck your grandpa too? Be uncomfortable there.
No.
Be uncomfortable there with a rubber bullet, because I'm really uncomfortable knowing that my son can serve in the military for as many years as he wants, but if he cuts somebody off in traffic, they're still going to call him the N-word.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and rubber bullets aren't rubber. Rubber bullets aren't rubber, baby.
I know.
So I want everyone to know the rubber bullets aren't rubber, and they're fucking people up. So don't let this fucking jingoistic shit. We've always been at war with East Asia. Like, this isn't happening. This is awful.
I want to draw back to what Monica just said, though. Like, I want to come back to the point that she was just making about, like, the excuse of I don't want the fight, or I don't want to be uncomfortable, and how that really does put the onus back on the marginalized person then to do it. I use this like statement very it's intentional. That discomfort pales in comparison to what it is like to live every day as the marginalized person, especially a Black and brown person right now. So I'm going to, just like what Monica said, I'm going to need you to push into that discomfort just a little bit harder, because when I have to explain, or when Monica has to explain to her children, now I've talked to my kids about systemic racism. It literally took me all of about 4 minutes and they got it. But when Monica has to sit up and she has to look at her child and she has to explain, when the police pull you over, make sure you say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. When the police pull you over, make sure you do this. Make sure they can see your hands. Make sure how many white people have had that discussion? I don't want to hear that it's uncomfortable to bring up race with your partner. It's uncomfortable to bring up race with your aunt at the dinner table. We don't care. The time for comfort it's long gone. That is a layer of privilege. And if you want to see racism in play, that right there, the fact that you can say you are uncomfortable to talk about racism is a perfect example of white supremacy and a perfect example of racism. That is what holds the system in place. Your discomfort is minute. It's not relevant.
Yeah.
Do it anyway.
Yep.
Well, yeah, a 4-minute conversation and they get it.
Yes.
This is the thing. And this is the thing. For you, it might be a 4-minute conversation. But for us, it's an everyday occurrence.
Exactly. Yes.
That's like baseline. Yes. It's baseline. It's everywhere. And it's like one of those things where it's like a betrayal, right? Because you're hanging out with people that you think are your friends. Like, I legitimately made myself a rule not to drink with white people. I don't know, because I learned the hard way that, like, you think they're cool, and then all of a sudden I'm all the way white, and you're dropping N-bombs, and it's like, wait, whoa, you know?
But I'm just singing along with Dr. Dre. I don't know no better.
You're not allowed to do that either. Don't even get me started there. But it's like, for me, yes, I've been talking to my boys about this forever, but that conversation doesn't end there, because they can yes sir all they want, and they can show their hands all they want, and it still might not matter. And that's just the police. That doesn't count your George Zimmermans or the guy and his son that, you know.
The Georgia guy.
And that's the real problem. It's not, it doesn't stop. We don't get to pack that away. You know,
well,
any one of you can join the movement today, and you can pull out at any minute you want.
Yes.
You can pull out at any minute you want. You can say, you know what, I'm tired of protesting. I'm going to stop. But none of us can pull out of our skin.
Yeah.
Thank you, Monica. Seriously.
It just doesn't happen.
No, that is like the best point that's been made in this whole conversation. Love you, Michael and Adam, but that is the best point that's been made in this whole conversation, is that the three of us get to walk away at any point.
Yeah.
We get to walk away and we're done. And we can just go do whatever it is that we want. Monica can't. And that's the point that we need people to hear, right? A police officer at any point can take off his badge and say, I'm done.
Yeah.
At any point he can walk away. At any point somebody else can go pick up a book and they can read it. But there is no point that racism gets to stop for Black and brown people. There's no point. It is day in, it is day out, it is every interaction. It's every time I go to the grocery store. It's every time I'm hungry at 1 o'clock in the morning, and just like my other counterparts, I want to go over and I want to grab something from the fast food restaurant. But it's cold out. Can I wear a hoodie? Can I not wear a hoodie? It's these things that it never stops. And that's why when I say we can empathize, but we will never fully get it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And if the conversation ended right now, and the last thing that everyone took away was what Monica just said, like, I hope that everyone stayed up and you can highlight that reel. Right there is what Monica said. That was the whole point of this conversation.
All right, thanks for coming, everybody. Let's play some music. No, fuck. I mean, I can't tell you just the evolution of not just Adam and I doing this bullshit shit all the time, but because we do care and because we try, and it's never going to be good enough, and it's never going to cause the kind of change that we want just from this. But I hope that, however many 5 people keep watching this, that they understand, that they know
it's more than 5.
that they get it, that it matters, that I have this vision, this understanding that this town is in and of itself. We can always find Erie County in its own little bubble, and the change is possible, and it's necessary, and it can happen here, and that we just need to stop with, Nick Scott doesn't need another 10 feet on his yacht.
Nope.
Erie Insurance doesn't need to buy 4th Street any further than Parade.
That's another podcast you guys need to have. We need to talk about that. Yes.
All right. Well, come back. We'll talk about it.
We don't need 8 Walmarts in 20 minutes from here.
We don't need 3 Walmarts in 20 minutes from here.
I mean, every True Value, every little fucking Ace Hardware store, every little local business, go to Krause's if they could open, because we're not green. Krause's. Because I know, but there's so much. There's so many
farriers or
exactly. There's
Value
so
Home Center,
many
whatever
minor things that we have wrecked, that we white people and white control and just the ruling class of allowing these things to continue over and over again, and to just gloss over it. And we should be better, and Erie can be better. I mean, we could exploit our nature to no end. We don't need Hammermill. We don't need GE. We don't need Wobtech. We don't need these places.
We don't need.
We could be a beautiful, beautiful little community that 5 months a year is the best place to be in the entire country, and it's full of live music and talented poets and amazing performers and understanding and beauty and just excellent. We could have all of our schools could reopen. All of our excellent teachers from all of our local universities could be the best that they could be. We could be this just think tank of our own understanding. We can deny every little thing that comes around us, and we can all come together. We can push the racists out into the center of Pennsylvania and let them thrive until they die in the woods, until their fear kills them. Yes, but this place is special and it's unique, and we have the opportunity to move it forward. And we can do these things together if we just stop doing Schember. If we stop letting Persingers lose and then come back with corporate backing and make things worse. If we stop listening to all the fucking Applebee's fucking owners in the world and all the...
if we start voting for the Jay Brennemans of the world instead of the Bob Murskys of the world.
Yes, thank you.
Yep, and
you
better.
Guys rock.
And
you guys rock.
And look, Brenneman's great, but he's the compromise. Understand that.
Sure.
That he's the compromise, just like Sanders. Bernie Sanders, he's not the end game. He's the compromise. So
baby steps.
Baby steps, but look,
Brenneman would get my vote.
Yeah. Brenneman did get my vote.
Yeah. Me too.
A couple times, actually.
Yes, but yes, did get my vote. Yes, thank you.
Absolutely, and I will support, and I'll wax his mustache for him on camera.
No, that's part of the character. Yeah.
But
that's good content right there.
I mean, Monica, just between the people we know, just from the hall days, someone sent me a picture yesterday from 6 years ago of me reading, and was like, oh, this just came up on my memories or whatever, of me in front of a room in front of everybody. And I thought, that was it. That was of a time where nothing was wrong there. Everything was right. Everyone came together. Everyone got their voices heard, and it was the most beautiful thing. And I believe that those moments can exist again. And I believe that us as a society, as not just Erieites, as not just Americans, but as citizens and humans, that we can achieve that. And it is possible if you listen, if you let everything else that you've been taught just slide away, and you understand that each and every one of us is a beautiful human being, and we can enjoy the love that each and every one of us presents, then it can be that way. And I truly believe that. I also think that there's going to be death squads, and I will fucking hang people off the dick on the dock, and I will let them rot, and their bodies will be an example to everyone that comes here, and Tom Ridge will burn in effigy. But
I wasn't ready for you to go there.
That escalated quickly.
Hey, Michael,
it's a whole new
That,
inquisition.
but I can't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
I already have trouble flying, man.
Yeah, until they show up at my door. and look,
I'm not joking.
And after they watch this show, guess who gets busted? But look,
you guys rock. You guys rock, man. And I appreciate you guys for doing what you do. Tyler, I love your point. Thank you so much. You guys, you're needed. You're necessary. And what you're doing is important. It is important. So keep doing it.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, these conversations matter. Change moves as fast as trust, and trust only moves as fast as connection. So this matters.
Well, and the thing that I saw, I read a thing today that was talking about like Arab Spring and all the sort of, changes that were like inevitable until they happened so quickly. And, here's hoping that The change in our world is another one that is like it's never coming until it happens so quickly you don't even see it. So, Tyler, Titus, thank you for being with us.
Yeah,
Tyler, that was anytime. Like I'll do this every week with just the four of us because fuck it. Monica, you're one of my favorite people in the world. Of all my journeys across the country and north and south of this little fucking place, like I will never ever defame your name or not prop you up because you're just an absolute saint in my religion. Join my cult and worship Monica. She is the most beautiful person that I know. I can't explain to you the love that I have for her and the way that she has made me a better person. I absolutely adore you for being here, and you can come back all the time and keep us straight, white men. But you're I know your kids. They are amazing human beings, and I think about them.
Speaking of,
I fear for them. Yeah, Tyler, go tend to your life. Monica, keep educating everyone, but not because it's your duty, but because it's what you do from your heart. All of you, thank you, and let's do this again in a couple of weeks because I can't think of a better way to ever spend my Sunday night than with you guys. Thank you so much,
Monica. And I just wanted to real quickly just thank you. You were very vulnerable and you were very open, and you don't owe it to anybody, but thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. I appreciate you. I appreciate everything you said tonight. I watched you, so thank you very much.
Absolutely.
You guys
the
have
only
fun.
poet laureate of Erie County is Monica Igras. Chuck Joy's a cop. Yeah, Chuck Joy's a cop.
Unless you put it on a plaque, it doesn't count. I want it. I'm coming for it.
Tyler,
only poet, I want to see it.
I can't wait to talk to you again. Thank you so much for everything that you do. And I'm sorry that anything that hurt you this week, I hope it only makes you stronger.
This takes a lot more than this to hurt me. A lot more. It takes a lot more than shitty Facebook comments to hurt me. But.
Good.
Awesome.
Everybody out there,
thank you both.
We love you all. Go wash your hands.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.